Good morning. Good morning. Thank you for joining us. Let's go ahead and get logged in and ready to go. One of the things we love about these microlearning sessions, which we started during the pandemic, is that while we have, a huge contingency from, of course, our Louisville friends, we get people from all over the country and even other parts of the world joining us. And so if you are from anywhere outside of Louisville proper, if you could just drop in the chat where you're from, and if our Louisville friends can give everybody a warm hello, we can just do a bit of a warm up here while we were waiting for everybody to get on in. We've got Oklahoma and Indiana, welcome. Beaver Dam, Kentucky. Hello, UPS. Chicago. Oh my gosh, we took our little one to Chicago. We drove there right before school started and she absolutely loved it. Such an awesome city. We have Cincy all over. Wonderful, wonderful. Well, thank you all for being here. We are at the top of the hour, so we are going to go ahead and dive in. But I am Lisa Zangari, Vice President of the Leadership Louisville Center. And I'm going to tell you a bit more about the center in just a bit. But first, I do want to let you know that these free microlearning sessions are made possible with really generous support and enthusiasm from HJI. And we happen to have with us today a very special guest, Mr. Conrad Daniels, and he is actually president of HJI Supply Solutions since 2017. And before that, he was the company's chief operating officer. He's actually been with them in a variety of roles for about 17 years. He joined right after graduating from Georgia Tech with a degree in industrial engineering. So many accolades, but we don't have a lot of time this morning, so I'll just hit some highlights. He has the unique credential of having designed HJI's current building. I mean, how cool to design the building that you now are CEO of. And then he has an MBA from University of Louisville. He's also the current board chair of the Leadership Louisville Center. Thank you, Conrad, for your service. And a proud member of the Leadership Louisville class of 2013. So without further ado, Conrad is going to give us all a welcome.
Thank you for that, Lisa. And friends, good morning, good morning, good morning, and welcome. I'm Conrad Daniels, president of HJI Supply Chain Solutions. And as Lisa said, this year's board chair for the Leadership Louisville Center. A little bit about HJI. We were founded in 1994 and we're headquartered here in Louisville, Kentucky. HJI serves companies in a variety of industries whose reputation instills confidence with customers looking for a proven supply chain partner who consistently delivers peace of mind. So we offer outsourced manufacturing support services that include line-side presentation, sequencing, assembly, injection molding, and metal stamping. We also offer fulfillment services that include e-commerce, kitting, pick, pack, and ship, and warehousing. However, our core focus is to enrich the lives of our people, our community, and provide peace of mind to our customers. And we do that with approximately 500 team members and 1 million square feet of space across 6 locations in Kentucky and Tennessee. As a presenting sponsor of this series, we value the Leadership Louisville Center and its mission of bringing people together, solving community problems, and investing in leaders. The center's mission to inspire and equip leaders to be better and do better. And in keeping with that mission, the Leadership Green Room microlearnings help to provide a taste of the learning that happens in the Leadership Green Room. I'm also excited to join you for today's session to learn more about psychological safety and high performance, which was the foundation for more innovative and strategic decision-making. Again, HJI is proud to serve as presenting sponsor of this series. Thank you. And now let's get to why we all are here. Lisa?
Thank you so much, Conrad. We are again honored that HJI Supply Chain Solutions has partnered with us for this. And thank you, Conrad, for sharing our purpose statement. So I'm going to swiftly move away from that. Was sort of perfect timing there. Didn't know that was coming. It was amazing. Totally simpatico. So as Conrad mentioned, we have the Leadership Green Room from which Microlearning was born out of. And that's really the leadership development arm of the center, to where we give people, 1 to 2 day experiences, but also things like these micro bites of learning. But our heritage, if you will, where we started was actually with our Leadership Louisville signature program. And most cities of a certain size have something similar. And it's where you can send your executives to go behind the scenes of the inner workings of your community. So you might spend a day with government, social services, education, the criminal justice system, the entrepreneurial community, so on and so forth. And again, most cities of a certain size have that programming. However, as you can see here, Leadership Louisville actually has 5 civic engagement programs, more than any other leadership foundation in the nation. And I think it's a real testament to the citizens in our community that are always putting their hand up, raising that hand to say, I can do more, be better, do better. And so we have been able to grow and expand, and we just get to come into work and do what we love each and every day. So with that, welcome once again to Psychological Safety and High Performance Teams. The first thing I want to do is establish some common language, right? Which may sound odd because you say, well, we all know what high performance teams are, but I think it's important to pause and look at this definition. So the piece I think that we mostly think about is, it's a team that's performing well and contributing to the overall success of the organization. But that's more the outcome. What we've got to understand is what enables that, right? How are they able to achieve this? Well, it's this piece. While simultaneously providing its members with an environment where they can grow, do their best work, and feel a sense of belonging and pride. And this is the piece that we're going to dig into today with the time that we have. Now, I'd like to, make sure that your brains are on, that you're fully engaged. And so the first thing we're going to do is we are going to have a bit of an exam here. I'm about to share with you on the screen a little vignette for a team A and a team B, and I need you to think about which team A or team B, which is more likely to be high performing and why. Now, do not put your answer in the chat until I say, but go ahead and let's just have a read. Team A, team B, which will be more likely to be high performing? Now, when you're ready, you can go ahead and start to put your answers in the chat. And I'd like you to put either A or B, but a little bit about why, maybe one phrase or sentence about why. And no, you cannot say, well, you take this from A and this from B, and there's your team. You have to be in one camp or the other. Is it A or is it B? Man, B is really in the lead here. More diverse, collaborative, there's that spark there, completely engaged, sense of belonging, diversity. They're not silenced. Now, I'd also like to hear from you, why not Team A? What do you think are some of the key reasons Team A will not be as high performing as Team B? Which I haven't shared the answer yet, but why not Team A? No room for innovation. Input from others is not allowed. Yep, too focused on individual accomplishments. They're not even a team. Missing the pieces between the lines, love that. Passive. Not enough information. They can't explore. No creativity. Speaker controls the narrative. Well, we must have a room full of geniuses this morning, or a Zoom full of geniuses, I could say, because yes, as you have correctly guessed, you should opt for Team B. You should opt for Team B. Let's get into a little bit more about why. I mean, you guys have completely nailed it, but just in summary here, Team A, the group's norms discourage equal speaking. Right? You only speak when your area of expertise is on the table. We are all subject matter experts, and so we give our opinion, and that's pretty much what it is. They don't have the level of socializing to where they are understanding each other on a more personal level. And so over time, what's going to happen is they are going to be, and someone I think actually said this, more of a team of leaders than a leadership team, right? So they're not going to be in sync. And over time, they actually will show to have lower collective intelligence, even though the description said they are all very intelligent, experienced, and successful people. They will have lower collective intelligence. Team B, again, you guys nailed this. They socialize. They're sensitive to one another's mood. Everyone can speak up, no matter if they're the subject matter expert or not. And actually, they're piping in with those fresh eyes, fresh perspective, diversity. The whole will be greater than the sum of the parts. They will have higher collective intelligence. Now, let me share something with you. When we first designed our course around developing and leading high performance teams, I think, 4 years or more now, it's been 4 years or more now. When I first was teaching that course, I would ask people in the room, who here has heard of psychological safety? Rarely would that many hands go up. And in fact, this exercise of Team A or Team B would result in vigorous debates because when we were in person doing this, each table had to come to a consensus, right? So you walk into the room, you don't know who you're going to be in the room with. It's an open course just like this. And at your table, you're given the task to A, choose which team will be higher performing, and then B, come to a consensus and share your opinion with the class. There were tables that couldn't even get to consensus. And then suddenly, psychological safety was something that everyone's talking about, something people are reading about. It's a really hot topic. And one of the reasons why that is because of this. In 2013, Google set out to also understand and to see if they could almost like codify or decode what makes a high performing team. Is there an algorithm, right? They wanted to geek out on the data and solve it. And so they said, we can look inward. We have tens of thousands of employees all over the world. And so certainly we can get our own data around what makes an effective team at Google. And so they looked really holistically or sort of, very comprehensively because they looked at rankings for the executive, then a team leader that reported to that executive, and then members of that team, right? And so you were looking at reviews on all of these people, how they were rating and ranking one another. They looked at 180 teams across the world, hundreds of interviews, had hundreds of inputs, but they ran 35 different stat models to get the results. And the reason why they did that is because they didn't believe what they found. And they kept thinking, oh, no, there's got to be something more here. There's got to be something else. And they kept running the results and kept running the data. And finally, they said, man, we've uncovered something. And what they had uncovered was this. When it comes to high performance teams, there was one thing that mattered head and shoulders above the rest. And it was this. But when they came out with this report, people really weren't familiar with the term psychological safety. But it's a shared belief held by members of a team that that team is safe for interpersonal risk-taking. It's about communication. It's about empathy. It's the belief that you can speak truthfully and openly about problems without fear of reprisal. Now, Dr. Amy Edmondson, whose name you see here, she gave a TEDx talk years ago to where she introduced this notion and talked about psychological safety. Not that many people saw it. Good for her, though, because after Google published the study that went gangbusters, it was disseminated all over the world, she actually wrote a book on psychological safety and was able to capitalize on that finally. So good for you, Amy. But psychological safety became mainstream. And actually, if you are a master's student right now in org design, you're going to be studying about psychological safety. So let's get into some other things they found in the study. One of the things that they found fascinating was that they actually tracked the number of minutes that every team member and leader spoke over the span of the study. The study was for 2 years. They didn't know what they would do with that data. They didn't know if they would find any patterns, but there was a huge, huge theme that they found, and it was this. The teams that reported the highest levels of psychological safety, if you look at the number of minutes that every team member, including the leader, spoke over the span of the study, the minutes were almost identical. It was almost the identical number of minutes. The teams that reported the lowest levels of psychological safety had 1 to 3 people doing the majority of the talking. And in that 1 to 3, it always included the team leader. Now, you could say, well, gosh, could it be that somehow the data was skewed, or maybe is there a coincidence there? MIT did a similar study and found the exact same thing. And they studied hospitals and customer call centers and banks and all these different industries, and they found the exact same correlation. And one of the Google researchers was interviewed, and he said, as long as everyone got a chance to talk, the team did well. But if only one person or a small group spoke all the time, the collective intelligence declined for all of the reasons that you guys put in the chat. Lower creativity, feeling not feeling that sense of belonging, not feeling you're valued, maybe fearful that, your input isn't wanted or you shouldn't speak up, right? For all of those reasons. So equal turn taking in conversation, huge. Now, often, when we can go deeper into this, and of course, people will say, yeah, but you have your extroverts, you have your introverts. How do you get people speaking in equal measure? And so it's really interesting, because it's not to say that, oh, well, there are people who just do all the talking and no one can get a word in. Sometimes, and there are also people who just don't speak up. For other reasons. But interestingly, there are these exercises you can do to where you build the group awareness of your team. You build the self-awareness around communication styles and talking and things like that. And so Harvard put out, it was just a really easy exercise to where you take something like poker chips or coins or candy, and in a meeting, you distribute maybe 3 pieces or 3 coins to everyone in the room, and you say, hey, we're going to try something today. Every time you contribute and speak, you are going to cash in one of your coins, right? And everybody has to use at least 2 of their 3 coins. And in studying this, what they tend to see is when you first go into a group, that's been working together for years, the usual suspects, they're cashing in those coins, you get to halfway through their meeting and they're not allowed to speak anymore. But I almost think what's stronger than that is then the people that maybe aren't as likely to speak up, or have felt like, well, maybe, I can never get a word in. They suddenly then are able to put their coins in, but there are some people who are left sitting there, the meeting's almost over and they haven't used a coin yet. And there's this huge aha at the end of the meeting, to where you can say, okay, so, and you can share the results. What we've learned is equal turn taking is important. So we're going to do this exercise for our next couple meetings, just to build all of our awareness around the importance of this. So that's something they've said is very successful. So there's a tip for you. But there's so many other benefits to psychological safety. When team members feel safe, they'll admit a mistake. And what's so wonderful about that is not only do others get to learn from that mistake, but they get others helping them problem solve, right? So they admit mistakes, ask for help, they will stretch into new roles because they feel trusted and supported. They take more risks, which gets us to more innovative ideas. This whole give equal airtime. If everybody's speaking in roughly equal measure, that means that we're all also doing a lot of listening. A lot of listening. They check in on each other. I love this next bullet. It doesn't say they have no conflict. No, they do, but they manage it swiftly and effectively. And not just that, they have the good kind of conflict, the productive ideological debate, the loyal opposition stuff that gets us to the really awesome ideas. And they have more fun at work. Now, you could still look at this and say, these are awesome results, but this is kind of the soft stuff or the human stuff. What about the hard stuff? And here's why Google's study became so famous. They also studied their sales teams. And what they found was this. The teams that reported the highest levels of psych safety were beating sales targets on an average of 17%. And the teams that felt most unsafe were missing sales targets by an even greater amount. An even greater amount. This study was so successful that Google ended up spinning off a consultancy around it. And they actually, they still publish things, they give resources, and they go into companies and help them create psychologically safe environments. So here's an assessment. You can take a photo of this on the screen, but you can use these 10 statements below to measure the psychological safety in your team. So things like, I understand, expectations of me. We value what we get to in the end versus sort of the process along the way. If I make a mistake, it's never held against me. It's safe for me to take a risk. It's easy for me to ask other members for help, so on and so forth. But you could take a photo of this and then just go through these questions. Some companies actually have started, measuring psych safety to get that baseline in their companies. And so there are a myriad of ways that you can do this, but you can also just sort of sit with this and answer how you think those that you lead would respond to these questions in the most truthful way possible, and use your intuition to figure out where you might have some blind spots. So what do we do about it? How do we create that high performance team environment with psychological safety at the core? Well, we have developed a model for that. It is called the 6 C's of high performance teams. And in the time we have, I'm going to go through the first 4. So we have conscious leadership, common purpose and shared goals, communication, collaboration, conflict management, and celebration. So starting at the top here, conscious leadership. This is about being intentional about how you show up each and every day. And what is that intention set around? Creating a psychologically safe environment. It's also about knowing how to unleash the best in you and unleash the best in others, right? Getting the work done with and through other people is sort of the magic there. Now, we all have a personal brand at work, and if you lead others, you also have that leadership brand. Some of us have given that brand a lot of thought, and we have worked toward building it, evolving it, preserving it. But more often than not, we haven't given it much thought at all. It's just developed over time. We show up the way we show up, we say the things we say, and that brand just takes on a life of its own. But it is never too late to master your leadership brand instead of letting it master you. And of course, the cornerstone of all of this is self-awareness. So in the chat, what are some ways we can become more self-aware? What are some ways, no matter where we're at in our leadership journey? Yes, journaling, asking for feedback, listening for feedback, right? You don't even always have to ask for it. You can observation. You can just observe how others respond to you. 360, yep. You can do it more formalized ways. Oh, I love, just heard a great TED talk on this, ask what instead of why. And hello, Betsy, good morning. Thanks for joining. Mentor observation. Oh, I love that. Tom from UPS. Yeah, you can get peer feedback. You can get feedback, up and down. You can journal. You can observe. All right, so we're going to start broad, right? We're going to start really broad around leadership, which is when you think about great leadership, extraordinary leadership, tell me in the chat, what does that look like? What are some traits or competencies that you would say make extraordinary or great leaders? Transparency, approachable, integrity, truly part of the team. Listening and being vulnerable, empathy. Brene Brown would be proud to see this, all those in there. Collaborative listeners, trust, humble, support and space, humanity. I love that. Proactive coaching, inspiring, level-headed, calm demeanor. A little bit of humor. Absolutely. All right, so I'm going to share with you something from Zenger-Folkman. Zenger-Folkman is a global leadership consultancy. I'm a huge fan. We've actually had Dr. Folkman teach in our green room. It was sold out, of course, because they developed something called the Extraordinary Leader. And what they did was, well, actually what I should back up and say is the reason why I'm such a fan is because they do all their own research, right? They are researchers at heart. And so Zenger-Folkman studied 330,000 people, 330,000 people, to get to a list of the core leadership competencies that are required to have a high performance team, right? What do we need to see in that leader? There is nothing on this list, I think, that anyone would say, whoa, I've never considered that. But here's why it's so interesting. What they did find within this list is that there was one competency that was called a differentiating competency. And what that means is this: if you have this competency, you are naturally good at 4 to 5 other things on this list. They're part and parcel, but also this is the one thing that matters most to your employees. It makes the biggest difference in whether or not you will have a high performance team. It's right here on the page for you to see. It is inspiring and motivating others. Now, sometimes when I share this, people go, oh, great. So are you saying it's all about public speaking or charisma? Or no? Thanks to Zenger Folkman, they actually were able to outline in detail what employees find most inspiring, what employees find most motivating. And it's the things you see here. Number one, please let me know what is expected of me so I can then hit that bar or even go beyond it. But communicating clear expectations, which sounds so simple, yet how many times do we go into organizations to work with them and we suddenly realize that you have employees sitting there saying, well, I wasn't really clear on my role, or gosh, it got really confusing at times, or it wasn't really outlined. Tell people what the expectation is. And already they'll be more likely to meet it. So communicating clear expectations really motivates people. Communicating frequently and consistently. So think about this. If you're the leader, people want to hear from you. People need to hear from you, but they also want to know what you stand for. They want a consistent message, right? They want something that is strategic. They want clear decision-making. The next one is establishes stretch goals. If you give someone a stretch, you know what that says to them? I believe in you. I trust you can do it. But also, if you have the psychologically safe environment, if you don't make it all the way, we'll learn from it and we'll move on. Number 4, listens. Point blank. How motivated do you feel personally when you're talking to somebody and you're like, I don't think they're even listening? How motivated are you when that happens? Nada. So tell me in the chat, what does active listening look like? Even on Zoom, you can tell, right? What does active listening look like? How do you know if somebody's really into what you're saying? Eye contact, engaged body language, nodding and asking questions. Yep, exactly. So again, you as the leader, you cast that leadership shadow, you have your leadership brand, people are looking to you, and your attention is so very important. Next, clearly explains team goals and visions. What are we going for? How are we going to get there? Why are we all here? That is inspiring. That's the inspiration piece. And then finally, another one of the inspiring pieces of this is using storytelling to drive emotional engagement. So what this often can be about, and it's no coincidence that some of the best leaders are often great storytellers, is just engaging your people on a different level. Emotional engagement has proven to be more critical to achieving winning results than some other pieces. And so, well, what type of storytelling are you doing? This can be, I think, one of the most effective ways to bring storytelling into the work environment is to always tie what we're doing back to the people we serve. Who is the customer? Who is ultimately benefiting, right? And so I'm going to share some examples here in just a bit of companies that have done this really well. So again, it's not about you having to be this prolific orator, amazing communicator. It's, are you able to connect the dots for people? And in fact, the best communicators are often the ones that can just really simplify things for folks so that everyone throughout the organization, every heart, every hand is engaged. Now, somebody put in the chat, the reflection and journaling are keys to self-awareness. Absolutely. And so hopefully you have a sheet of paper. If not, you can take a photo of this. If you do that sheet of paper, I would encourage you to try to do this exercise later today. But you would take your sheet, divide it into 2 columns. One column is me at my best. The other column is me at my worst. And then I want you to view the world through the eyes of the people you lead. What would they say in the column of you when you're at your best? What traits would they say? What qualities do you exhibit? When you are at your worst, what qualities do you exhibit there? Right? This might come directly from feedback you've gotten. It might just be things that you just know about yourself. But it's a really good exercise to do. And to take it a step deeper, you then can look at both sides of the list and say, okay, of the 3 to 5 things that I wrote as me at my best, what is my one biggest superpower on that list? Right? And that is really the essence of your brand. When you look at me at my worst, what is the one thing that's my biggest kryptonite? And that is where you want to focus your efforts on removing that behavior. that's the one you want to try to do least, right? So it's a bit of a roadmap for you, So that is conscious leadership, just a taste. The next C that I'm going to talk about is common purpose and shared goals. This is articulating the why that gives meaning to the work and providing clarity around our highest priority goals, right? So sometimes people struggle because they say, oh my gosh, you've piled so much on me. There's so much to do. Where do I focus though, right? When there's so much going on, can you help me understand at the end of the day, it's these 4 things that matter most, and then the rest you can use to fill in your time when you've got the space to do that. And often we're all moving so quickly that we haven't paused to say, yeah, guys, that work over there can wait. This is the important stuff, or this is what matters most to the customer, or this is what our employees need. But it's up to you as the leader to provide that clarity. Right? Everyone on the team needs to know where they are going and why. If nobody tells you, all you're left to do is to set your own direction. And before you know it, you have 100 people going in 100 different directions. So again, the leader has got to provide that clarity, instill a shared sense of purpose, and make very clear how everyone in the organization can contribute in a really meaningful way. Particularly in the enabling functions of a big organization sometimes, where you feel like, oh my gosh, we're serving an internal customer, but we don't, sort of ever get close to that end customer, if you will. Making those connections for those groups can sometimes be the most meaningful, right? So because sometimes that disconnect can be there. So there's another reason though why purpose is incredibly important. Because back in the day of Working Girl, if you've seen that movie, and if you've not, just think shoulder pads, pantyhose, and oversized leather briefcases. But back in the day, employees valued, fair salary. I want all those benefits, and I want to stay at this company forever. Like I want to get that 30-year watch. I want to get that 40-year pen, whatever. That's what people wanted. Today, we want meaningful work where I know I'm making a difference. I want to feel a sense of pride in my work. I want to have someone invested in my growth and development. And most of all, I want to be appreciated for the work that I do. Interestingly, again, sometimes when this list is shared, people say, oh yeah, that's what, these younger generations want. No, this is what humans want. And so I was once teaching this course to a group of senior executives, and we polled them on which of these things is most meaningful to them. And unanimously, guess what the answer was? And again, these are seasoned executives. Having someone invested in my growth and development was number 1, right? And it'll differ amongst teams, but I thought that was so fascinating, right? That learning journey of a conscious leader never ends. So people need and they want that sense of purpose. In Daniel Pink's book, Drive, The Surprising Truth About What Motivates Us, what did he say? What are the 3 things that drive people? Autonomy, purpose, mastery. Harvard Business Review, they did a study and they found that employees who derive meaning from the work, right? They've got a purpose. They report almost twice the job satisfaction and are 3 times more likely to stay. 3 times more likely to stay. So I talked earlier about storytelling and how can you craft those stories that connect us to who ultimately is benefiting from all of our hard work, right? And so some examples of purpose statements at the team level. So number 1, you have a customer service team at a financial services company, and they talk about instilling a perpetual commitment to keep the customer at the heart of everything we do. Then you have a legal team. We empower our business to succeed so that farmers, rural communities, and agriculture can thrive in America. I think this one, I just always love sharing this one because I used to work with them years ago out of London, but Unilever, when they launched Axe. So think about Unilever. What do they sell? They sell products that mostly moms buy, right? So like for babies and personal care and things like that. Suddenly they had this like body stuff for dudes. And so that team, the Axe team within Unilever, they came up with a purpose that was kind of cheeky and almost tongue-in-cheek in a way, but actually really motivated them. And it was, hey, we help young men get ahead in the dating game. And they just sort of became famous within Unilever because they really went for it and they doubled down on that. So it created a lot of excitement. But the one I think I love most is there is a company here in town. They're, in Rubber Town, unsurprisingly, because they make rubber polymers. And, when you think about being in that factory and working those lines and the products they're getting out into the world, they did something kind of genius. The polymers, the rubber they work on, they actually were in the space shuttle, right? So this is years ago, and NASA launched the space shuttle. Their product was in there and actually helped make sure it was steered correctly, but their product also goes into the cars that we all drive. And so they tie this rubber to, man, we helped put, astronauts on the moon, and we also help keep families and the people we love safe each and every day. We make rubber that makes a difference. Kind of awesome. Okay, so third C is communication. Using clear communication to build trust, right? To build trust and create transparency and openness. And in that list that you guys put in the chat on what makes a great leader, transparency was in there tons of times from you guys. But the other side of communication is actively listening to develop empathy and gain insights about those you lead. The more you listen, the more you learn about your people. The more you learn about the people, the wiser you are, the smarter you are around how to motivate them, how to inspire them, what they need from you. So the next thing I'm going to put up on the screen is something I want you to put in the chat, but the answer has to be through the eyes of the people you lead, or through the eyes of the people that you work with most. So what one word would people say about you to describe your communication style? Your one word. Everybody's got to know their word. Honest. We have honest, direct, open, two-way, blunt, positive, authentic, creative, assertive, animated. Yeah, me too, Kelly Gold. Integrity, genuine, detailed, descriptive. Yes, 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 right? Understanding, love that. Empathetic. Right? We all need to know that one word. And then, like I said earlier, with the other exercise, you've also got, you don't have to put this in the chat, but you also need to know the one word, describe your communication style when you are not at your best, right? If you at your best is empathetic, what's the other side of that? Again, we've got to know both sides. And you can actually do the same list that you did earlier on the leadership piece, which is 3 to 5 words that describe my communication style at my best, and then 3 to 5 words that describe my communication style at my worst. Kareem put loud. Terse or impatient. Hello, Vivian Blade. Good to see you, leadership and resilience expert. Well, I love that you guys are just popping in your, yep. Some people get really quiet. Some people get too loud. Some people get too direct. So I'll share mine, both sides. So I think, one word to describe my communication style, what people often say is passionate. And me at my worst is when that passion becomes fiery, right? So my passion is a real hallmark of, my style, but man, me at my worst, that passion turns to a bit of fire. And I know that about myself, and that's what I have to try to avoid. All right, so there's the communication piece, right? So if we had our full 2-day experience around this and our 2-day course, we would go so deep on this. But I'm going to flip us over to the power of listening, because again, it was on that list of what inspires and motivates people, right? Number 4 on that list of what leaders need to do is listen. And it's really, really hard. It's really hard. Why is listening so hard these days? Like, what gets in our way of always being that active listener that we want to be? We are more distracted than any other time, ever. Partially because of this, right? But also just the multitasking. Yes, the multitasking, the always plugged in. And sometimes it's the distraction of things like this. Sometimes it's just the voice in our head. Sometimes it's just, exactly, we're preparing our response, right? Instead of actually listening, we're just planning what we're going to say. And we don't want to forget it. So we're going to hold on to it. Hello, Nicole Durbin. I'm loving seeing all these friends in the chat. So why is listening so important? It's something everybody goes, oh, yeah. No, it's important. It's important. But it actually does all of these things. As I said earlier, research has found that by listening effectively, you'll get more information from the people you manage. You will increase others' trust in you, reduce conflict. You'll better understand how to motivate others. And the more you listen, the more you will inspire a higher level of commitment in the people you manage. And I get to experience this all the time because our phenomenal leader, Cynthia Napek, is an extraordinarily good listener. So in our leadership team meetings, she'll often speak the least. She'll often speak the least. Paul, you're right there with me going, yep. And actually, Paul is another phenomenal listener. You are, Paul. Yeah. And so, because think about it, I think actually you and Cynthia probably do the least talking in that group. But when you both speak, you've been taking it in, soaking it in, and it's more almost like a summary or a, hey, you know what, I've been listening and what I'm hearing is, and there's such power in that, such power in that. And she's an extraordinary leader and she's such a good listener. So we talked earlier about what active listening looks like to another person. So let's talk about internally what's got to be going on for us to be that active listener. Think before speaking, which again, you often teach what you most need to work on. Me. Right? So think before speaking. I'm going to share a tip on that in a minute. And as a leader, what you're trying to do here is you're really wanting to be intentional with your comments, because the people that you manage or the people you lead, everything you say is just of such great import because you're the person, you're the boss. Listen with respect. And I think we have said in the chat, that is that eye contact, totally plugged in, nodding, asking questions along the way, not interrupting necessarily, but when there's a pause, asking that question. And then I think one of the biggest ahas for me when I was, studying listening however many years ago is asking before you say something, is it worth it? Is it worth it? And again, the gauge for this is how will it impact the energy or the environment? And sometimes it's the tough stuff. And actually, if you say, you know what, I am going to say the tough thing because it's going to help everybody out. It's going to be an unlock versus you know what, I'm going to say, we've tried that before. It's not going to work, or you're going to kill something. You're not just killing an idea or a thought, you're killing that person's creative confidence. You've got to be really intentional, which actually takes us into the next C, that creative confidence piece, collaboration. So collaboration, this is all about role modeling and applying the right behaviors in order to unlock the collective genius of the team. So earlier when we started talking about, very top of the hour, when we were talking about collective intelligence, that's really what this is all about. How do you create an environment with psychological safety that makes people feel so comfortable and so valued that you're pulling out the full collective intelligence, the full collective genius of that team? And then part 2 of collaboration is equipping the team with common language and tools for problem solving. Sometimes just establishing that shared understanding can be a big unlock as well. So I want to throw it to you guys in the chat. And I think we have some friends on here from Chance School who are going to immediately know the answer to this. But who are the most creative people that we all know? Who are the most creative people we all know? Yep, it's our little ones, right? Kids are creative geniuses. Creative geniuses. And it's so interesting to me because my background actually for over a decade was working in New York City. I actually traveled the world, but I was based in New York City, and I traveled the world teaching executives how to be more creative and how to build cultures of innovation. And it was just so interesting to think about children and the way their minds work. And the reason why there's such a good lesson in that is in the chat, I want you to tell me, who here was ever a child? Yeah. We were all children. And now I want you to tell me this. What is it about children that makes them so creative? What is it? They haven't learned to be afraid and to be wrong. Psychological safety, man, they're like, I am free to be me, right? No filter, always learning and challenging. They don't have those limitations, no boundaries. They're brave, they observe. right? They're incredible. And here's the thing, they're so present. You know, sometimes if you are, I'm responding to something in the chat. They're so present. So do you ever, and I have, my little one is 3.5. So we're talking like, she's right in that zone of like creative genius, to where I'm going, what, mind blown? What are you talking about? But you know, I'll call her name. And it's not, she isn't ignoring me. She's just so present and so fully engaged and enthralled with what, and fascinated by what she's doing. Her little brain just doesn't even acknowledge that I'm calling her, right? Because they're so engrossed in the moment. So what happens is when we are young, when we are children, think of our mind as a funnel. It's really, really wide. It's a wide funnel, and we're taking things in, we're taking them in, but we're not judging. We're not judging yet. We're just open, and things are sort of hanging out there because we don't have enough experiences to have those files in our brain that we have now, right? So the brain loves to sort and organize, but in order to be able to sort and organize, you have to have enough fodder. Well, the child's brain, again, it just has all these, think of them as like dots kind of floating around. Well, what it forms a new idea or a new thought? Taking two of those dots and connecting them in ways that have never been connected before. As we get older, right, as we get more experience, as we get more dots, those dots actually start to clump together, right? And actually there's a term for this. You can think about it as raindrops in our head, right? So there's lots of raindrops in our head. As we grow, as we get more experience, as we become more knowledgeable, those raindrops start to form streams of recognition in the brain. And that's where we start to really build expertise around something. So maybe for a child, it's playing piano, or it's letters and numbers. And as an adult, we form rivers of thinking over time, right? Rivers of thinking. And those are the things that we've had the most raindrops for. So it's our job. It's the people we know the best. It's our hobbies. It's, you know, the industry that we work in, we are expert. But sometimes that expertise can keep us from finding the creative solution because the banks of that river are so high and it's flowing so fast and it's so deep. You've actually got to get out of your river of thinking to get to innovation. Kids don't have any rivers of thinking in their head. They just don't. And they're imaginative, fearless, curious, playful, emotional. As we start to go to school and we're given more structure, right? It's actually a good thing because it then helps our brain also navigate reductive thinking, which is where we can apply critical thinking, where we can apply judgment and evaluate. But the issue is often at work, when we are trying to come up with ideas, let's say we're all sitting around the table, around the Zoom, we're having ideas. Well, if nobody tells us how to show up around ideas, you have some people that are the creative, you know, Energizer bunny, got another one. At the same time, somebody else in that room is going, tried it before, can't afford it, can't happen, not going to work. And so idea killing and idea creation is trying to happen at the same time. And so we don't get very far. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to share one of the 4 behaviors that we teach in the full course around, well, you as a leader, what behavior can you role model around creativity, around fresh ideas, around new thoughts, so that we can actually not kill ideas too early. It's called greenhousing. What the heck is greenhousing? So greenhousing is built on the concept that every new idea that is shared, right, in the moment, like, oh, I know, it's like a seed. It is not fully formed. It was born out of inspiration. And so a seed of an idea has got to be protected long enough to be nurtured and grown until it's big enough to be fairly judged. And so it's like placing a metaphorical greenhouse on top of the seed of an idea. Now, not only does it protect that idea, it actually protects that person. How many people here have ever once been a little bit nervous about the idea that they were about to share with everybody else? Either because you thought, I'm not sure this is what we're going for, but this idea has come into my head, or people are going to think I'm crazy, or it might not be good enough. One of the biggest barriers to innovation in our organizations, and I'm talking everything from everyday innovation, which we all need, to the big disruptive stuff, is fear of judgment. Fear of somebody, a peer or a boss, somebody in the room saying, that was the stupidest idea I've ever heard. Now, maybe not saying that, but thinking it. Maybe the expression on the leader's face told everybody that Yeah, not going with that one. So greenhousing not only protects us from our default behavior of judge, judge, judge that we tend to be in the workplace, it preserves psychological safety and it builds creative confidence in your people. Because in the world of business, we are the Olympic champions of idea killing. We're awesome at it. And you want to know why? Because we have a river of thinking around the work that we do. We can tell you that ain't never going to work. So if your answer to someone's idea is, yeah, we tried that before. Oh, you did? Oh, well, what did you learn? What's different about the context today? What might we do with that? And again, what I'm not saying is there's no such thing as a bad idea. Yeah, there are horrid ideas. I have many of them. But the thing is, we tend to judge too quickly before we fully understand the idea. And so you can greenhouse by applying a bit of sun. Number one, when someone has the courage to throw that crazy idea out there, or even just throw a not crazy, just a new idea out there, and the voice in your head goes, oh, well, how'd they come up with this? Suspend judgment. The S is suspend judgment. And instead, you move into the U, which is understand more about the idea. And hence, understand more about that person and how their brain works. So you might say something to role model for everybody else in the room. Okay, that's interesting. What inspired that? Because maybe the insight that led their brain to make that connection is really useful, even if the idea itself is so-so. And then you can build around that insight. Or maybe when you say, well, tell me more about how it might work. And they say, well, gosh, I don't know. I just came up with it. Somebody else in the room might say, well, what if we, and they start building. And before you know it, you are nurturing and growing an idea together. And once that idea is big enough to be understood by all, and I'm talking 2-3 minutes, then we say, okay, guys, now we can judge the idea. But when you judge it, just remember, as the leader, you've got to then be in coaching style, which is, oh, okay, now that we understand more about this idea, that actually is not what we're going for. And here's why. Right now, what we're needing is da, 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 da. So are there ways we could take a little bit of the seed of this idea and maybe take it in this other direction? That's a coaching moment. Or you might apply sun and get this idea big enough and say, wow, now that we fully understand this, I do think this is something we could pursue. That is a coaching moment for you and that person. That is creating psychological safety. And it's you role modeling to others that we're going to take our time around ideas. We're going to nurture each one of them a little bit, and then we'll judge. So just want to give this a go. If your last name begins with A through M is in Marie. In the chat, I need you to kill this idea. Cockroach sushi. What is horrible about it? Why will it never work? Some might say it's gross. Some might say it'd be too crunchy and too loud. Poor branding, they're dirty. We hate cockroaches. Ew. Lacks curb appeal. More like they're crawling down the curb. Hard to make, yeah, right? Hard to make. Negative. There's a negative view out there of cockroaches. Not sure if you're aware. Okay, so they might run off. Okay, so stop the killing. Stop. Oh, not FDA approved. That's amazing. If your name, are they dead or alive? It's up to you. If your name begins with N through Z, what do you think you're going to do? What life can you breathe into this idea? Where might it go? Where could you possibly take it? Good source of protein, nutritious. People are into different things. Ooh, high in protein. Trendy. Marketing opportunity could be really hip. It's inexpensive to make. Latest fad, endless supply. And the list goes on, I assume. So here's the deal. I stole this exercise from Tina Seelig. She's a professor at Stanford's D School, their School of Design. And what she does is she has her students, she puts them into group. She teaches creativity and entrepreneurship, puts them into groups and says, I want you to come up with the worst idea you can come up with. A new business, a new product, just horrible idea. Of course, everybody turns them into her and she redistributes them to a new group and says, now you're going to build this into something. Well, a group got cockroach sushi. And what the students did was, and you guys already came up with this in the chat, they said, actually, the DNA of this idea is that it's unexpected, it's exotic, and it's new. but founded in something that people really, really love and that they'd be willing to pay a premium for. So the idea was not literal. It wasn't, and here's your cockroach sushi. What it was they came up with a sushi fusion restaurant idea. So you might have on the menu a whole section that is Japanese and Spanish fusion. Then you might have Japanese and American fusion. Then you might have a Japanese and French sushi roll. And so really exotic, unexpected sushi at high prices, exotic, amazing cocktails. And that is the idea they came up with. And interestingly, when I lived in New York City, a restaurant I loved to go to was called Sushi Samba. And that's exactly what the model was. And it was super expensive. So my friends and I would go there if we had something to celebrate. But what was the point of this exercise? It's this: as a leader, you have a choice. When somebody, works up the courage or takes that leap and shares their idea, you have a choice. You can choose to go to the default human behavior, see that idea on a red, judge it, kill it, and keep it moving. We don't have time for that. Or you can choose to see that idea on green and say, okay, guys, let's just pause for a minute and let's just explore this idea, see where it might go. You're building the creative confidence of that team member. You're creating an environment of psychological safety. And quite honestly, over time, if you're to do this, you will get to better ideas. Not every idea is going to be great, but your people will learn over time what good looks like, right? And the way you'll communicate to them that the idea can't move forward is going to be done in such an empathetic and respectful way that creative confidence stays intact. That creative confidence stays intact. So that was a taste of the first 4 of the 6 C's. Number 1, conscious leadership. Number 2, common purpose and shared goals. Number 3, communication. 4, collaboration. 5, conflict management. And 6, celebration. So the one thing I want to leave you with, and I want you to write this down for yourself, or maybe carve out some time later today. What is the first step you will take to create psychological safety for others? The first step you will take. And then I always like to ask people to do this one as well, because sometimes, you guys probably all have an 11 o'clock. I'd be shocked, or, whatever time zone you're in, you're going to run to the next. But please, before you do that right now, write down your one big takeaway. What is your one big takeaway from this morning? Embed this learning, write it down. It's more likely then that you'll be motivated to go back to this, right? Go back to, sorry, which slide? Are you guys wanting to see the 6 C's again? Couple of requests to go back a slide. And then we have, thank you. First step for psychological safety. We have one big takeaway. And friends, I get to introduce you to one more person before you bid us adieu, and that is Paul Bolton, who is our Director of Biz Dev, and he is going to tell you how you can engage with us.
Yes, thank you, Lisa. That was awesome. And yeah, we don't have much time. You also I wanted to make you aware of 2 things that aren't on there, and one of them is, and that is 1, the high performance team, developing and leading high performance teams. You just got a short view of this, and it's a 2-day course. We've had an unbelievable response from many organizations already. And in fact, and this is my attempt at humor, you all, if we could box this up, we would need HII to help with the order fulfillment. So it is a very popular course. It has sold out for December, and because of that demand, we do have opportunity for those that want to attend here at the Leadership Louisville Center in February. But this is also a course that we can deliver at your location, or you can bring your team to the center. So there's many opportunities to take advantage of. One of the courses that's not on here is First Time Manager Experience, and that's another course that's coming up in November that we always sell out as well. And we have that coming back in the summertime as well in June. And the Women's Leadership Series, if you are looking for an opportunity the first part of the year to either gift the gift of leadership to someone or provide it for yourself, the Women's Leadership Series, Authentic Leadership for Women and Find Your Voice, it's a great opportunity as well. So I'll be sending an email out to everyone with the slides today. I've seen some questions in the chat, so you'll get that today from us with the video. Give me an email back or just a call, or you can book an appointment with me, virtual, in person, however you like, and we can talk more about some of these opportunities. All right. All right. You all may leave now. So have a great rest of your day, and I'll be in touch with you before the end of the day.
Thank you guys so much.
All right.
Take good care. Thank you, Conrad.